What is up, everybody? This is Chase, and welcome back to the Wellness Center podcast, where we are destigmatizing mental health one episode at a time. Everyone, I am so grateful you are tuning in today to listen to another amazing story of journey, resilience, hardships, trials, and all of the phenomenal aspects that make us human. Everyone, as you're tuning in, again, I'm so grateful for it. If you're not already a part of the Wellness Center tribe, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. If you're following us on a platform like Apple or Spotify, please make sure to hit the follow button, the download button, and make sure you're getting updated and notified on all the episodes that we are releasing every single Friday to give you the skills, to give you the tools, and to give you the hope to survive the weekend. So everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm really, really excited for today's episode. Guys, we have an absolute legend in the industry of mental health. This person, guys, I can't even begin to describe like the goosebumps I feel just thinking about all of the good he's doing in the world. I'll introduce him in just a little bit, but again, just guys, get really pumped for this guy. He's going to be awesome. And guys, I already know from the few minutes of conversation that I've had with him before I started recording that the gold nuggets of truth that he's going to drop in this episode are going to absolutely change your life. So please make sure to listen to this episode all the way through. My one call to action to you guys is that we're a startup podcast. We're new and we're growing. And I know the lessons that we have are changing lives. So as you're listening to this episode, please share this episode with someone that comes to mind as you're listening to these gold nuggets of truth, to this story. Share this with someone so they know that you care about them, so you can help them learn some new skills, and ultimately we can lift everyone up and destigmatize mental health. So guys, without further ado, I've rambled enough. I want to bring in my amazing guest, guys. So by way of his introduction, this guy is an incredibly successful entrepreneur. He's known as the happiness expert with global impact that has affected over 100,000 lives. He's the host of the Good Morning Revolution podcast. He's the author of the Good Morning Revolution book. He teaches how to choose happiness, even in challenging times. And has guides on recognizing and overcoming what he considers to be the 8 primary bad moods. So without further ado, we have Matt O'Neill on the show.
It's gonna be a fine day today, I can see. It's gonna be a fine day today, I can see. It's gonna be a fine day today for you and me.
What's up, Chase?
Matt, how you doing today, bro?
Man, I am so freaking fantastic and pumped to be on your awesome podcast.
Dude, thank you so much. I am so excited and pumped as well that you're here on the show, man. I know that you are like a super, super busy guy. You've got so much on your plate. So to take an hour out of your life to come share all of you it's truly an honor and a blessing.
Same, man. It is an honor to be here. Excited to talk about like how to feel amazing, because at the end of the day, we can struggle all we want, but we also can feel as happy as we want. And that's the message I want to get out to the person listening.
And you know what? And I know that message comes with a story, and that's why I'm so excited to have you on, right? Your own personal story that brought you there.
Yeah.
So Matt, just so we can get to know you a little bit better before we dive into all that really good nitty gritty stuff, can you give us just some like cookie cutter answers as to who you are and what you're all about?
Yeah, for sure. So I am a father of 4 kids from ages 2 to 10, and a husband to my wife of 13 years, and a business owner. We own a small family business, and then I have a partnership in another business. And I love to play basketball. I love to surf with my kids, and I love to read and grow and learn.
Dude, that's super cool. So congratulations on 13 years of marriage and 4 kids, by the way. That's no easy feat.
Thanks, man. It's awesome.
Yeah. So I've got 2 kids myself and one on the way. And one thing I'm starting.
Congratulations, bro.
Thank you, man. But one thing I'm learning is that no kid is the same at all.
Right.
Like you would think like, oh yeah, same parents, same kids, same house, same upbringing. They're going to be relatively the same. Nah, not a chance. Sorry, go ahead.
No, they're who they are, right? So if we're eternal beings and we're eternal souls, they were who they were before they ever chose to come and be your child.
I love that. See, guys, already nuggets of truth.
But it just is how it is. And as a parent, when you start to realize, oh, wow, this personality had nothing to do with me, nothing to do with the genes, you can see it as a parent, especially like you're saying, between two different children that, and I think that they come here with their own things to learn and work on. And as a parent, I kind of feel like my job is just to identify where their strengths are and kind of what the challenges are they need to work on, and just guide them in that direction. And with each of my kids, I can see what they've come in with that they need to work on, and what
Mhm.
their talents and strengths are. And it is really interesting that they're completely different in all ways, in both the strengths and in the challenges.
That's super cool, dude. I love that. I love that exploration of your children. So, like in your, and I know you talk about you guys have a small family business. Are your kids involved in that family business?
No, they're not. I mean, they're 10 and under. So
Okay.
we haven't had them started to work. It's a real estate brokerage, and
Oh, okay. Yeah.
they haven't. They'll come in, like, hey, Dad, can I come to work with you? And I'm like, sure. And then they'll play foosball and like draw on the whiteboards and things like that. But they're
Okay.
not they're not selling houses yet.
That would make sense. As I was saying that question, I was like, oh, maybe there's some child labor laws we're going to avoid.
We could. Hey, some of my friends turn them into like actors and put them in commercials and things like that. I just have never done it.
Oh, no, are you in California?
No, I'm in South Carolina.
Oh, nice. Okay. That great area. My parents actually met in North Carolina, so the East Coast is cool. And then the surfing's good out there?
The surfing's small, but it's fun.
Okay. Which, for 10 and under kids, it's probably a great place to start and learn.
And for me, it's awesome.
That's awesome, dude. So what are some of these other businesses that you have?
Yeah, so we've got a title company, and then we've got a property management company.
Cool. So you're all real estate through and through.
Hmm.
That's really cool, dude. And so I know you're the happiness expert, right? What was the transition from real estate to happiness expert?
Yeah, I knew I was going to write books to help people feel better when I was 5,
Okay.
and I couldn't explain it. But I have memories, like I remember looking in the mirror at 5 and being like, "Wow, okay, I'm supposed to write these books. It's interesting." And then the same kind of intuition would come back to me in my teens. And at that point, I'm like, I'm supposed to help people feel good. I'm like angry all the time. Who am I supposed to be to help people feel good? But
Right.
I just continued to have these nudges and intuitions. In my 20s, they came back. And then when I was in my 30s, finally I was, I had some quiet time, and I asked this question: what should I do to be the biggest service to the world? That was the question I asked. And I got an audible answer back, and it was write a book. And I'm like,
Mm.
oh, okay. Okay, well, what should it be about? And it was silence. But so I said, okay, so I'm going to write a book, and I'm just going to follow this it's kind of like, if you build it, they will come. It's like what I was supposed to do. And it's kind of
Yeah.
how I've been guided my whole life. And had nothing to do with real estate. I knew I wasn't going to write a real estate book. And then it just came to me, I was going to help people feel better. So at first, the book was called How to Get Out of a Bad Mood.
Mhm.
And the first half of my book, The Good Mood Revolution, is about how to get out of the 8 primary bad moods. And then the second half of the book is how to choose longer periods of time in the 8 primary good moods, and just real practical tips that anyone can use to get out of these bad moods and into good moods.
Dude, that's super cool, man. I love that you took that call to action, right, in the time that you were meant to, right? And there's something interesting you mentioned, that like when you were a kid that you were angry all the time, but you felt this calling to help people feel happy. So I think that leads perfectly into my first question, Matt. So take us back to a young Matt, right? What was life for you growing up, and like what were some of your first signs that you were struggling with mental health?
Yeah, man, I had a really tough dad. He, he was just extremely emotionally abusive, sometimes physically abusive. He was extremely large, intimidating, strong, and aggressive. And as a kid, we didn't know who he was going to show up as. And so all of us were walking around in eggshells. I have 3 siblings, my mom. We all were always like trying to say hi the right way, smile the right way, please him, because in any moment he would fly off the handle. And some days, even if we did everything right, he still was going to fly off the handle. And so it was emotionally tough as a kid, and you kind of lose all sense of security when you're really little and you're kind of always afraid. And then he kind of abandoned us. And my mom was a secretary, so she's on a secretary salary, and there's 4 kids. And my dad said all your kids are going to be drug addicts and end up in jail because you're not going to have the money to support them. And thankfully, it didn't happen. But we were really afraid that we wouldn't have enough money to like buy groceries. And my mom would hand me a calculator when we got to the grocery store at age 6 and say, "We can't go over $30 because that's the amount that we have for this week." And every week we'd have to put things back at the checkout line, right? Like we just didn't have enough to go around. And that creates a bunch of fear and anxiety. And at the same time, I was like the man of the house at that point because my older brother was checking out. My sister was off at college, and at 6, I took on all this responsibility that I had to like hold things together. Well, that was a pretty tough thing. So at that age, actually in first grade, I made a comment to my teacher I was going to kill myself that weekend. And so then they put me in counseling because that's not a good thing for a 6-year-old to say, but it was just a tremendous amount of pressure, right?
Yeah.
Just too much. And then anytime I would see my dad again, it was just, again, kind of enduring any kind of abuse that he wanted to send. And so by the time I got into my teen years, I was extremely angry. And so what I did to protect myself from all of this vulnerability and all this hurt, I didn't know how to deal with it. No one had taught me how to deal with it, is I just put on a super tough, crazy amount of arrogance and a really hard exterior, so like nobody could touch me. And then I was angry and aggressive, and anger was like my go-to emotion. And then when I got in my 20s, it led into, daily drug use, daily alcohol use, just trying to like, again, numb out all of these emotions I didn't want to deal with. And those were the dark times. And
Yeah.
then thankfully, this is what's cool, is God's always there. And so even when I felt like I was completely abandoned and alone, and I never was, but I just wasn't also at the same time humble enough to admit that I was always being guided and helped. And so I continued to get like help, and things continued to come my way. And one of those things was I went into the mountains. I was in Colorado when I was in my 20s, and I'm like, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be where I am. I shouldn't be around all these drugs. I know that this isn't where my life is meant to go. And so I went in the mountains and I just kind of sat there and I was like, what should I do next? And I had an intuition to go to Charleston and get into real estate. And so I flew to Charleston, got into real estate. A couple of years later, met my wife. Then the company started to take off. We ended up being named the #1 company to work for out of 470,000 companies in the state of South Carolina, one Inc. 5,000 fastest growing company, like all of these awards and accolades. And like life just got really beautiful once I, kind of started to make some decisions to improve my mental health and get some things straight with my emotions.
Dude, that's what an incredible story. Dude, thank you so much. I love that you just took that question and you just laid it out there for us, dude. So,
Yeah, man.
dude, I've got so many questions. I'm so curious kind of about your story. But first, I just want to thank you for your vulnerability, right? That is so incredibly important and powerful, right? So obviously pretty big age gap between you and your siblings.
Yeah. My sister's 13 years older than me.
Hmm.
My brother's 10 years older than me. My mom was planning her escape, right? Because
Hmm.
she knew my dad was a tyrant. And
Hmm.
then she became pregnant with me.
Hmm.
And she's honest with me. She's like, I thought about like going having an abortion just because I knew I couldn't raise another child
Hmm.
needing, when I knew I needed to leave him. And she went to church and she prayed,
Hmm.
and she left church saying, all right, I'm supposed to have this kid.
And you said you had 2 siblings or 3?
We got 3. So then she ended up saying, all right, well, I'm going to try to make this marriage work. I have a little brother.
Okay.
And yeah,
Wow. Absolutely crazy. Absolutely
it's
crazy.
crazy. It's crazy, dude.
And
But things, this is so kind of going back to what I said earlier about kids.
yeah.
I I firmly believe I chose these parents.
Yeah.
This is just my belief. My belief is that we know what we're getting into. Our soul knows what it's getting into. I believe I chose these parents, and I think we all make that choice. Not everybody has to believe that. It's just my personal belief.
Mhm.
It's also a really empowering belief because as a kid, I thought I was a victim and I had this awful dad, and I wish that I had a dad that wanted to throw a ball with me rather than
Mhm.
throw insults at me.
Mhm.
And but then I'm like, okay, well, if I chose him as my dad, why did I choose that? I'm like, well, shoot, if I had the dad I wanted, I wouldn't have had to heal all of the emotional trauma.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have then had the skill set to teach other people how to do that. So I wanted to go into the fire so that I could learn and grow and become more.
Yeah. What a gift. You were foreordained to do some amazing things, and obviously you have, which is so cool. Your dad, was he an alcoholic at all?
Mm-mm.
No.
No, he was not. No, he was just abused as a kid.
Okay. So there's some generational stuff there.
Oh, yeah, a lot of generational trauma.
Yeah.
But you don't know this. That's part of the healing too, is
Right.
tracing back the pain of your abuser
Right.
so that you know that like, okay, the pain he was inflicting on me is because he had so much pain inside of him, and he had so much pain inside of him because his parents had so much pain inside of them. And you
Yeah.
could literally just trace it back and see the origin of the pain. But then at some point, that's how you develop compassion for your abuser
Right.
and start to see, hey, he actually was doing the best he could. He just couldn't do very good.
Yeah.
Nobody taught him. He didn't have any skills,
Right.
and it was a different time, man. Right? Like
Mhm.
this was, he was growing up through the 50s and 60s. It wasn't like there's all this self-help material out at that time. There wasn't YouTube to go learn from. There wasn't people talking about mental health.
No.
So he didn't have the same opportunities to heal himself that I had.
Right. Which, I think this generation, this time in the world is meant for this healing, right? Is meant for
Yeah.
this change of pace, right? It's specifically because it is, right? So much is coming out about mental health because it's the time, which is so cool. And I love that you talk about the multi-generational trauma. I think the scientific term is biogenetics or something like that, but it talks about how the history of like trauma from your family can actually like play down, which kind of is curious. Do you feel like when you first became a father and you were kind of in your healing journey, did you ever have those moments where you saw some of that generational trauma coming out in the way you behaved initially, or do you feel like you were able to get away from that stuff before you became a father?
No, I'm still growing, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm not the perfect father, and that would be an impossible standard anyway.
Hmm.
Uh, and some of the ways that I was raising my oldest
Hmm.
were, thankfully, like my oldest was starting to exhibit some shame-based behavior.
Hmm.
And I called my buddy Matt Micheletti, and I was like, dude, I don't know what's going on. She's like, it's like we've been super kind to her. We don't, and he said, so let's, and he asked a bunch of questions, and
Yeah.
he said, so like, if she gets really good grades, you guys reward her. We're like, yeah, of course. He's like, and if she does really great in sports, you guys reward her. We're like, yeah, we took her to ice cream for like winning her gold medal. He's like, okay, so yeah, so you guys are definitely creating a bunch of shame in her. I'm like, I'm like, and I'm like, what?
Oh,
I'm like, oh, dude, okay, tell me more. And
thanks, my friend.
he said, yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's what we think we're supposed to do is like, if she gets an all A report card, do something special for like doing great. But the signal then is that you love me more when I perform.
Mm,
So even though we didn't love her less when she didn't perform, just the signal of you love me more when I do perform then starts to say I'm not intrinsically worthwhile unless I'm performing. And so that was a really interesting thing that we had, unintentionally done as parents. And cool thing is you can totally undo it.
right.
So the undoing is just tremendous amounts of affirmation, no, regardless of what the results are, and not going special on super great results because it does skew things. It's more about, just rewarding effort and who they are as a person, to just massive amounts of acceptance at all times, mistakes or performance.
Yeah. So I'm curious then, like in this situation where, like, let's say we're looking at the sports, the kids perform, they get the good medal, you go and give them the ice cream. If they go and then just totally botch it, is kind of this mentality if you still go get ice cream and reward them for their efforts and everything they did, regardless of the outcome?
You know, I see that it's maybe ice cream just isn't needed. And this is kind of where
Okay.
we're at, is that, man, we just so much love and support. Like I want to be more loving and supportive and show that how worthwhile they are when they don't have the highest performance, because they're already beating themselves up.
Hey, Brandon, I feel like a kid at Christmas right now. Why? Because we are this close to the next Rising Sun retreat.
It's the favorite thing that we do because we get to see men heal on a deeper level.
Everything that we do there is complete soul work. It's wrestle with God. It's wrestle with identity. It's brotherhood. It's connection. It just brings lasting change.
We go all in. It takes courage to come, but all of the men that have come have had an incredible experience that has opened them up like they never have felt before.
If you're interested in coming, the dates are September 19th through the 22nd. The website is risingsun.org. And if you're a listener of this podcast and you're hearing this right now, for a very short time, you can use a promo code 500RS2024 to get $500 off the admission price with the last few spots that we have left.
$500 off. That's risingsun.org. Rising SON.
Right. I want to let them know, man, your effort was incredible. The ball doesn't always bounce your way, like not every single time. And you're still worthwhile at this moment. You know, the ego, though, is going to take that and say, if I don't reward performance, they'll perform worse. And then they'll be worse when they grow up. And then it's going to be detrimental for their life. And that's just a lie. It's a complete fallacy. You know, sure, maybe helping somebody become super prideful and having to win at all costs and breaking their integrity to always be the best will help them perform at a higher level, but it won't help them have a happy life. And they're going to end up having all kinds of emotional struggles and challenges and relationship issues, because that performance at all costs is it's really a detrimental character trait.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you that it is. And I think that the journey to become happy, right, is what you're all about. And I think that's super important. And I think to develop that happiness in yourself, you had to go through a hero's journey. So I would love to bring in my second question here, which is your hero's journey, Matt. So for those just listening for your first time and discovering Matt O'Neill and how awesome he is, right, the hero's journey is essentially a hard moment, an extreme trial, a journey that someone had to take where they had to develop skills and become better because of it. So Matt, please take us on your hero's journey to find your happiness.
Yeah, man, it was starting the company. So when I started my own company, I didn't have the relationship skills or the emotional skills to effectively lead people. And I was young. I was 25 when I started this company, and I made my secretary cry. I remember I was just telling her how awful she was doing and how she wasn't living up to my standards. And she's like bawling, and she runs out of the conference room crying. And the front desk lady was like, "Man, you did not have to be so mean to her." And I was just like, she's not performing. Like she deserves everything I just said. And that's not a good way to lead people, right? So then I was having all these people leave me, and a bunch of business challenges. So I thought, okay, well, I need to learn how to become a better leader. And I started to join mastermind groups. And then through those groups, they recommended books. And then through these books, I started to really say, oh man, okay, I can grow through these books. The first book that opened my eyes to all of it was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And in that book, he said, your thoughts are things. And everything in your life is because of the way you're thinking. And I'm like, whoa, okay, that was a revolutionary concept for me. Everything in my life is because of the way I'm thinking. So everything bad in my life is because of like negative thought patterns, and everything good in my life is because of positive thought patterns. I better figure out how to get rid of these negative thought patterns and start to have more positive thought patterns. And then from there, it's just been hundreds of books, flying all over the world, meeting with like the biggest names in personal development, and really I wanted to understand all of it. Like, how can we craft just the most extraordinary life? And it really is thoughts and emotions.
Which is amazing. So how did you, like, so as you go through these hundreds of books and you're meeting with all of these world-class mental health experts, what were some of like the early on skills that you developed in your life to combat these negative emotions, and how did they evolve up to this point in your life?
Yeah, so the first one was writing down 3 things I did well every day.
Okay.
I was super critical, as I talked about how tough I was on that secretary. Well, if you think I was tough on her, you should have heard the way I was talking to myself every day.
Yeah.
I was never good enough, right? I was never
Mhm.
good enough for my own standards. And this is a wound of judgment. Again, all the judgment I had from my dad. And we all have it. We're always judged. In school, we're judged, we're graded on a scale of worst to the best. In
Mhm.
sports, we're graded on who's the best athlete. Like, judgment is just part of the culture, and it's a wound. So the wound of judgment says, I need to be perfect. I have to perform perfect. And everyone else does too. And they're not good enough, and I'm not good enough. And so to heal that, every day I started to write down 3 things I did well. I've been doing this every day for over a decade now. It's the first thing I do. Every morning I take out my journal and I write down 3 things from the day before I did well. What happens is your brain starts to say, oh, I did that well, and that well, and that well. At first, it's really hard to come up with them. You're like, well, yesterday was a crappy day. Man, I can't think of anything I did well. I failed at that. I failed at that. I said the wrong thing here. This didn't go the way I wanted it to. But if you force yourself to say, what did I actually do well, even if it's small, then in the moment, that later that day, you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe this is something I did well today that I can write down tomorrow. Your brain starts to keep an open file and noticing what you're doing right in the moment. Well, what this does is it builds your self-esteem, and you start to feel really good about yourself instead of really critical about yourself. And then you start to notice things that other people do well, and they're doing something cool. And you're like, oh man, you're doing awesome. That is really cool what you're doing right there. And your whole personality starts to become super positive, uplifting, and affirming instead of judgmental and critical. So that was one of the first skills that I took on, and it's one I still do to this day.
That's super cool. How long do you feel like you had to do that skill out of like force before it became habit?
Yeah, I think the magic number is somewhere between a month and 3 months,
Mhm.
just of daily repetition. It's so important that I don't know that I'll ever stop it.
I love that.
But every morning, it's like every single day you get to say, oh, I'm worthwhile today.
Mhm.
Yesterday I did these 3 things. And then at the end of the week, I read the 15 things I did well for the week. And I say, man, what a week. That was awesome.
That's
And
cool.
I summarize at the end of the week the five of my favorite of the 15. And at the end of the month, I read the 20 from the 4 weeks. And I'm
Mhm.
like, what a freaking month. And then every quarter I read those 3 months worth of hits. And I'm
Uh-huh.
always feeling like I'm winning. And this is the thing, is that success can only be built on top of success.
Mhm.
And so the more we feel like we're doing good in the world, the more good we actually do in the world.
That's so cool. That is so cool. You're blowing my mind, Matt, just so you know. Like I know a new skill I'm about to implement.
Dude, you'll love it. You'll love it. You'll never go back. And you literally become less critical and more affirming. And it takes so little time,
I love that.
five
Um,
minutes a day.
that's so cool. And I think it's also super important that you're doing it at the start of your morning, right? When you're in that, is it state of beta or theta, one of those two, where your brain is just in a different spot coming out
Mhm.
of that rest that
Yeah,
you're just,
absolutely. Yep.
yeah, super cool, dude. So what are some other skills that you developed?
Yeah, I took on the gratitude and appreciation practice.
Mhm.
So that's the next thing I do every morning. That was actually probably the very first one I did. I watched the movie The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, and then I loved it. And
Mhm.
and she's like, Rhonda says in the movie, she said, every morning when my left foot hits the ground, I say thank. And when my right foot hits the ground, I say you. And then as I walk through the house, I'm saying thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm like, oh, that's a really cool first thought of the day is thank you. And if you're saying thank you, who are you saying thank you to? Well, obviously something bigger than yourself, if whether it's the universe or God or whatever you believe in, but you're not just thanking nothing. You're thanking something that's greater than yourself. And so I took out a marker and I cut a white t-shirt and I put duct tape and I wrote thank you and I duct taped it to the floor. And it was before my wife and I even got married. So this was 14 years ago, probably.
Okay.
And she comes home and she sees it. She comes downstairs and she's like, I see you've been doing some redecorating in the house. But the next day I wanted to see the words thank you on the floor. So that I remembered to say it, right? When I woke up. Well, I've had a sign next to my bed that says thank you ever since.
That's
and
cool.
now it's just a little piece of paper, but it's taped right on the floor, right where my feet hit the ground to remind me that every morning I want my first thoughts to be thoughts of appreciation that I woke up and I get to be alive today. And, I don't always feel like it. Sometimes we're watching House of Dragon at night and it's a pretty intense show. And, sometimes we got crazy dreams or nightmares or whatever it could be in sleep. So, but resetting to every day, start the morning with those vibrations of gratitude has been a really, really cool skill that I've adopted.
That's super cool, man. And I was actually curious. So about the journaling, the three things that you feel you were good at the day before, do you still feel like even at this point, a decade into it, that there are some mornings you wake up and you have a hard time knowing what you did the day before? Or are you just so focused on those things that you did well that it just comes off the top of your head?
No, there's some mornings it's hard. Yeah, there's some mornings I'm like, man, yesterday didn't seem like it went well. And some mornings I have to sit there a little longer than others to come up. But every day I've been able to come up with three things that I did well. Every single day I've been able to come up with three. Sometimes I'm like, well, I did get a workout in. That's one.
There we go.
That was a win. If that was one of the best wins of the day, I'll write it down.
It's a great win. I think working out is so good for you. But awesome, Matt, dude, thank you so much for sharing. Is so obviously in your hero's journey, these skills you develop, these people you meet with, you start to realize that happiness is really, really important. And I know that you talk about how there are the 8 primary bad moods, right? So through your hero's journey, through these skills that you developed, what was kind of the process of creating, right, these 8 primary bad moods and how to combat them and all these things that you've kind of centered your businesses around?
Yeah, man, it was actually it's called The Map of Consciousness, and it was written by a guy named David Hawkins.
Okay.
And crazy, I like a chance encounter. A guy that I knew was just happened to be in town, and he texted me and he said, "Hey, we're getting dinner," and I was already at dinner, and I said, "Oh, great, I'll meet you for dinner." So I left one dinner and went and had a second dinner, and that dinner, he said, you have to read this book. And the book was Power versus Force by David Hawkins.
Okay.
And so I get the book Power versus Force. And as I'm reading it, it's super boring. It's super technical. And I'm like, not interested in it at all. And again, I get this little voice and it says, you should pay attention to this. You're going to write a book about it. And I'm like, all right, I'll pay attention. So in the Map of Consciousness, he outlines the lowest level of consciousness is shame. Mm-hmm. And he outlines all the way up to enlightenment, just these different levels of consciousness. And so the 8 negative levels of consciousness are the 8 primary bad moods. They're universal to humanity. And the one thing he doesn't really tell you, though, is like what to do about it. He just says, hey, shame is a bad mood. This is how you feel in shame, but he doesn't tell you how to heal it. And so I wanted to write a book that taught people how to get out of these negative states. Like what's something we can actually do to not feel unlovable, rather than just understanding what shame is and what shame isn't. I want to teach people how to not be stuck in it. And that's what my book, The Good Mood Revolution, is all about, is how to get out of these 8 primary bad moods.
That's so cool. It's interesting. I've seen kind of those same lists, right, of the different energies that you can be in, right? Like a lot of what I do is frequency work,
Yeah.
and I know
Yeah.
that shame has the lowest frequency,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
Which
that's all from David Hawkins' work.
that's really, it's actually really interesting too that the hurt, so the frequency, right, is 20 hertz is where shame resides.
Hmm.
And I've learned that through like some scientific research that red light therapy at pulsed at 20 hertz produces dopamine. So it's interesting that there's like dopamine and shame kind of in similar frequencies, right? Like needing those fixes there, right? Like I'm
Oh
sure.
yeah, yeah, man. We can get addicted to any of these emotional states because
Yeah,
they all produce they all produce chemicals in our bodies that are addicting.
right. Yeah, I'm sure we could spend a whole nother episode talking about addiction and addiction recovery. I know you kind of alluded to some of those struggles that you had in your 20s. I know I had my struggles with addictions, but that's for a different day.
Sure.
But cool, dude. So you're doing so good. You're thriving at this point at your life, man. Looking back at everything you've had to go through, right? What can you appreciate about all the hardships, all the struggles, all the pains, and everything that you had to go through in your life?
Yeah, the best part about it is that I don't feel better than anyone.
Okay, tell me more.
You know, if I had never struggled
Mhm,
with alcohol or drugs
mhm.
and I didn't know what that was like, I could look down on an addict
Yeah.
and
Okay.
say, oh, they should know better. You know, if I had never had, you know, the issues of my dad being a monster, basically, and then me lashing out in anger at a bunch of people I knew and hurting a bunch of people I liked with anger, you know, I might think I'm better than people that do terrible things in the world. But
Yeah.
I now have complete understanding how everyone who does terrible things, what's going on. And all it is they're just lost in some negative emotions. They've been hurt by some people and then they internalize that hurt and now they can hurt others. But also what's cool is I know that you can heal all of that. It's totally possible. It takes a tremendous amount of work. It takes a
Right.
tremendous amount of work and you have to actually like have guides and have people that know how to heal these darker energies. But
Yeah.
if you have a desire to do it, if the desire to be happy and genuine and light and get into those higher frequency emotions that you're talking about, if the desire is there, the way will show up.
I love that. That is so true. That is so true and so powerful. And you do that work, right? That's a part of your coaching program is helping these
Hmm.
people get to higher areas of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's so cool. So I and thank you for sharing your appreciation for your journey. I think it's so important. What kind of got you into, I know you wanted to do the book, right? You knew from the time that you were 5 that you were going to be writing this book. What kind of got you from the book to the coaching?
Yeah, I've always resisted coaching and
Okay.
I just have. And and then for whatever reason, I just decided I was going to help a few people one on one.
Yeah.
And you know, what's cool about the book is I can help massive amounts of people. With the podcast, I can help so many people all at once.
Right.
Coaching is a really time intensive labor, but at the same time, like there are some people that have coached me one on one when I needed a hand up, and I wouldn't be where I am without them taking that time and giving me that you know, their life force like that. And I just decided that I was going to offer that back.
That's awesome, dude. Good on you. Absolutely good on you. So Matt, at this point, dude, we're kind of nearing the end of our conversation here, and I want to give some space for you to kind of talk about like your podcast a little bit more about your book, what you're doing so that people can utilize your skills and resources. So my last main question for you is for those people just discovering that they have issues with their mental health, just getting into the realm of mental health. What advice do you have for those people specifically?
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's one thing to be oblivious your whole life and to say everything sucks. And it's, you know, I remember there was bumper stickers when I was growing up, is that life sucks and then you die, right? It's one thing to just resign that that's the way it is. And then it's another thing to say it could be better. And I'm gonna start to figure out how it could be better. And they're finding the Wellness Center podcast and Chase, and you're helping them see that life can be happier and that you can get past these issues. And so if you have discovered that, congratulations, because once you start the journey, it's inevitable that you will heal.
Yeah, it's a bumpy, the kind of the joke I make is recovery is a long, hard road, and they say it's worth it. I'll let you know when I'll let you know when I get to that worth it part. But no, it's
Oh man,
it
it is, man. Well, and this is the other thing I was going to say is that life is worth it.
yeah.
And when we're stuck in the really like darker, heavier emotions, sometimes we wonder, is it worth it? And a lot of people take their life.
Mhm.
And it absolutely is. Life, of course, the other side of happiness is sadness and pain. We can't have one without the other. They're two sides of the same coin.
Mhm.
However, once you commit to finding the skills and tools to find happiness on a more regular basis, you don't have to be that dark chapter of your life can be closed, and the darkness truly can be left behind you. Sure, we're going to lose more people that we love, and that's going to be sad and that's going to hurt. Sure, there's going to be other struggles and challenges, but there really can be years and years and years of brightness and light and love and happiness in your future if you commit to it.
Oh, I love that, man. I absolutely love that. And it is so true. From two recovering addicts to the person listening, it is absolutely true that it's worth it, right? And the highs are so much higher now.
Yeah, oh yeah, man.
And
Absolutely.
we get to stay there because of the choices. Right. So, Matt, thank you so much for coming on and answering my 5 questions and sharing your wonderful story of resilience and vulnerability and all the truths and the skills and the wonderful lessons that you shared with the audience today. Tell me more about your podcast, man, and your book and like all of these things that you're doing in your coaching and where people can find all of that.
Yeah, it's a Good Mood Revolution podcast, and the book is available on Amazon. It's Good Mood Revolution as well. And yeah, if you want to come check out what I'm doing, it's mattoneal.com. But really, Chase, just so much appreciation for you, dude. You are brightening up the world. You're making a huge difference. And isn't it nice to just be changing lives?
You know what, man? It's kind of a unique story, right? So like I've been through my own journey, right? Which it has come with addictions and struggles and suicidal ideation and depression and all of those things that I've personally struggled with. And you're right, just to get to a point with the skills and tools that we can start to give back is like, this podcast is what I look forward to each week, right? I work so that I can film my podcast.
Yeah.
It's just to be able to walk out of like the studio and just like hands swinging and feeling so good. It's so rewarding to love people. It is so rewarding to love people. Right. And I've learned that to love people fully, you have to love yourself first. And so, yeah, dude, you're absolutely right. So much fun. And guys, again, the Good Mood Revolution podcast, the Good Mood Revolution book, going to be in the description. Please go check out Matt O'Neal and what he's doing. The truth that he drops in his book, the stuff that he does in his podcast is truly life-changing and life-altering. If you are looking to be happy, he's your expert. He's your guy. Absolutely go check him out and support him in everything he's doing, because not only is it well-deserved, but it's going to bless your life as well. I know that to be true. So please go check his stuff out.
Man, thank you for that, Chase.
Yeah, my pleasure. And Matt, last time, bro, thank you so much for coming on my show and sharing your journey with me and my audience. I feel a deeper connection to you. I feel a deeper connection and a drive to do some more skills, right? The journaling of the things I did well, definitely going to implement that into my life.
Oh,
So
cool, dude.
I appreciate that. And if you guys have tuned into this point and listened to the entire episode, thank you so much for doing so. It means the world to me and Matt that you guys were here to listen to his story, to listen to his skills. And it's truly an honor that you guys have tuned in. If you're not, again, a part of the Wellness Center tribe on YouTube, please make sure to smash that subscribe and notification button. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to hit that follow and download button. If you really liked what you listened to today, leave us a 5-star review and let Matt know why. Give him a shout out. If you didn't like the show, leave us a 5-star review and let us know why you didn't like it as well. Either way, just leave the 5-star review. Again, everyone,
I
thank you.
love that.
Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I'm always looking for guests. I want you to know that no story is too big, no name is too small. If you have a story, I want to share it all. Please reach out to me at chase@thewellnesscenter.life, or you can go to my website, www.thewellnesscenter.life. Just click on the podcast tab where you can schedule your own time to come on here and share your wonderful story of resilience and vulnerability. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and me and Matt will see you guys on the flip side. Peace out.